All right, all right, all right. We are live. Look at everybody coming on in, one and all, as I get all set up here. Great to see you guys. Look at you. Oh, it's so cool to see you. Pedo Hitler. That's oh, these comments are great. You're already getting started. Yeah, let's have some fun with these comments. We need to during this time. Build some solidarity here. Come on in, guys, one and all. Great to see you. I already see some super chat questions up there. We'll definitely be dealing with those at the end of this live stream. We are live. Come on in, one and all. Great to have you here. It is Live Stream Friday. I'm Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor. If this is your first time tuning in, I am here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent and insane times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Smack that bell and subscribe button. Yeah, you got to hit your notifications if you want to know about all the videos that are coming out. We got so much to talk about here. Super chats are up. They're live, so send me your questions. I'll answer them at the end of the video. Maybe I can halfway through, I'll get a couple of questions in as well. Just to I don't know, diversify things as we go along. Gang, we are going to look today. It's kind of funny. I think I'm going back and forth between really taking what happened last night seriously, which I think we need to, but also at the same time, you know, just laughing at the utter and total desperation that we saw on display last night. I don't believe I have ever seen such an explicit expression of desperation in our national politics ever that I can think of. Certainly not in our lifetime. Jimmy Carter never stooped as low as his approval ratings. Last night was an act of total and complete desperation. You don't think there's a red wave coming? You don't think a red wave is coming? Obviously he does. Obviously. Why else do you think they did that last night? They wouldn't have done that if they thought there was a blue wave coming. They think a red wave is coming. We're going to get into precisely why they did what they did last night, which ended up turning into a colossal train wreck, by the way. It was an optics nightmare. Everyone's talking about it today. Again, that's what I mean. Part of this is hilarious, but part of this is also very serious in that we are going into uncharted territory, at least since 1860, all right? So we're going to get into Biden's speech. We're going to look at precisely the desperation that was behind it. I think you're going to agree with me on it. It's pretty straightforward. And then make sure you've got to stick with me to the very end of this video when I'll reveal where we're going from here. You're not going to want to miss this. Before we start, gang, make sure to click on that link below. Head on over to my special website for the Ready Project food supply. As we all know, especially since this whole pandemic insanity, we cannot wait for emergencies to happen before we respond to one. And no one, and I mean no one, makes preparing for an emergency more ridiculously easy and affordable than our good friends over at Ready Project Food Supply. Gang, they are simply the best. Their food kits last 25 years in storage. They include breakfast, lunches, and dinners. Each meal's at least 2,000 calories. And if you act right now, you're going to get 25% off a full 4-week emergency food supply when you click on that link below to my special website. So whatever you do, gang, do not wait. You can click on that link. It'll open up in another screen, and you can order your food supply while you're listening to me right now. Click on the link below. Go to getreadywithsteve.com. Save 25% off your very own 4-week emergency food supply today. They're patriots just like us, gang. All right, gang. Let's dive right in here. It is being called the speech from hell. That is probably the most common refrain I'm seeing. It is being called the speech from hell. Some liberal moron thought it would be good optics to have dark blood red lighting behind Biden as he delivered his blithering banter, which made him look like he was surrounded by the fires of Mordor, right? He was obviously breathing in the noxious gases, that's for sure. It was, by numerous accounts, a radically demagogic speech that sought to paint Biden's political opponents as nothing less than enemies of our democracy. Interestingly, I searched through a transcript of the speech. He said democracy, democracy, democracy dozens of times. He never once used the term constitutional republic. Not once. Interesting. The speech was, I believe, without question, the single biggest blight that has ever defaced our politics. Now, I may be overstating that, but just, going through my own mental library of presidential speeches, I'm sure you've done your own, just reflecting on it. Can you think of a single speech in our nation's history that could even come close to the vile, vitriolic, venomous absurdity that our nation was subject to last night? I can't think of any. Last night, we heard the ramblings, not just of a man, keep that in mind, right? Because we all know Biden did not write that speech. Biden can't tie his own shoes. He's trying to shake the hands of people that are nowhere around him, right? Now, what we heard last night was the ramblings of a far-left ideological movement, a radical cultural Marxist movement that is ironically petrified. They're panicked. They're horrified at the threat that average, regular, normal, everyday Americans, parents, moms, factory workers, truck drivers, business owners, policemen, they are scared to death of what those people, the threat those people pose to their radical cultural Marxist political economic agenda. They're reading the polls, gang. They know what's coming in November. And of course, they're trying to desperately convince you that Republicans are blowing it and it might even be a blue wave and all this nonsense. Ha, ha, ha. I promise you, if that's what they really believed, they would never have made Bike Riding Biden give that speech last night. They know what is on the horizon. And it's not the red wave per se that they're frightened of. It's the fallout from the red wave that's got them panicked. It is not a coincidence that on the very week that New York Magazine and the Washington Post printed that GOP leaders have already decided they are going to impeach Biden after the midterms. It is no coincidence that those stories came out at the beginning of the week and then we got this speech at the end of the week. That is not a coincidence. The Washington Post said unequivocally, impeachment, as far as Republicans are concerned, is a done deal. The House is going to impeach Biden. And at the same time, they're going to be launching dozens of Hunter Biden investigations among several oversight committees. And in my opinion, like I talked about, and we did a video on that earlier this week, in my opinion, that alone, I believe, is what Sleepy Joe, or better, his administration officials, because Biden is barely cognizant, that alone, the Hunter Biden laptop, that is what they're most afraid of when all is said and done. Because the laptop is just the gift that keeps on giving. We're discovering new emails, new pictures all the time. And even liberals like Bill Maher are coming out and admitting that these emails that we've already seen clearly show that Hunter and Joe were exploiting Joe's office as then vice president for their own personal financial gain. Right now, as we speak, There are 8 articles of impeachment that have already been officially drafted against Biden. 3 are for the disastrous troop withdrawal from Afghanistan, the shameful anniversary we just observed in August. 3 are for Biden's deliberate abdicating of his law enforcement responsibilities at the border, and 2 involve his illicit business deals with Hunter. You can expect those to skyrocket once they start the investigations. Oh, and guys, thanks a lot for the super chats. Definitely, you guys are awesome. Super chats are live, so if you want to ask me your questions, throw them in there. I'll answer them. I think what I'll do is I'll try to break it up a little bit. I'll try to answer halfway through our presentation here, and then half at the end. So I will get to every single one for you, no question. So, with that breaking news at the beginning of the week, that impeachment is a done deal, Republicans are going to impeach, Biden will be impeached, okay? With that, what they tried to do last night, and again, I tried, was to get as many people as possible in our country to see you and me the way they, the cultural Marxists, see you and me. They hate us. They despise us. They loathe us. And make no mistake, ultimately, it's because they fear us. And they are genuinely intimidated. Again, otherwise, you have to understand, otherwise, if they were not freaked out about the potential threat that we pose to their political, economic, and cultural agenda, they would be completely ignoring and dismissing us, just as much as they ignore and dismiss the inner cities. Except when elections come around, right? Just as much as they ignore and dismiss our values, our interests, our concerns. They're scared to death over the thought of someone like a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Matt Gaetz or a Jim Jordan having the power of an oversight committee investigating Joe and Hunter. That is what we saw last night. What we saw was an act of total desperation. Just like what we saw with the raid at Mar-a-Lago. It's the same thing. This is a Democrat deep state in total desperation, doing everything they possibly can to try to preempt a colossal crushing of their political and cultural hopes and dreams, beginning with Joe Biden's impeachment. And so in that light, that blood red light, they sent out a barely cognizant shell to deliver perhaps the single most blithering, partisan, demagogic speech in our nation's history in a desperate attempt to demonize the very political base of his future impeachers. But of course, the question, the $10,000 question, all of this is at what cost, right? Okay, so you're going to try to demonize half the population to preempt your inevitable impeachment. Fine. At what cost? What are going to be the ramifications of what you're doing as of last night? Well, we're already getting a sense of that based on the Twitter comments that are coming out. I'm going to read for you some of my favorite that came up. Again, not just my favorite, but some of the more insightful ones that I think are reading the tea leaves of what's really happening here. So listen to these reactions to the speech and see if you can hear a theme, see if you can hear a refrain emerge. Actually, before we go to Twitter, I got President Trump's reaction on Truth Social, right? This is Trump right after Biden's speech. Someone should explain to Joe Biden slowly but passionately. That's so Don. The Don, man. Someone should explain to Joe Biden slowly but passionately that MAGA means, as powerfully as mere words can get, make America great again. If he doesn't want to make America great again, which through words, action, and thought he doesn't, then he certainly should not be representing the United States of America. If you look at the words and meaning of the awkward and angry Biden speech tonight, he threatened America, including with the possible use of military force. He must be insane or suffering from some late-stage dementia. Wow. Boom. All right, let's take a look at some of these tweets here. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Joe Biden just declared all of us enemies of the state. Biden is a danger to us all. Hearing the themes here. Joe Biden, what? Must be what? He must be impeached. He could be impeached for that speech. He could be impeached for inciting that kind of civil unrest. The whole point of this speech, as Marjorie Taylor Greene understands, was a desperate attempt at avoiding impeachment. But as Greene shows, all it's done is steal the resolve. Senator Ted Cruz, tonight Joe Biden vilified millions of Americans in a divisive and angry speech that was detached from the reality of his political failures. He isn't actually interested in restoring the soul of the nation. Duh. He's only interested pitting his fellow Americans against one another. All right, good. You got it. Not bad. Mike Cernovich. I love Mike. You ready for this one? Bad news. Evil has declared itself. Good news. There is no moral ambiguity. It is clear now, if it wasn't before, that America is occupied by a Nazi regime. Yeah, I mean, if not Nazi, certainly a far-left banana republic regime. We're all Venezuela now, as it were. Monica Crowley on Fox News. I found it on Twitter, but she said it on one of the panels, Fox News. This is great. Listen to this. The imagery there was almost satanic with that blood-red lighting and the two Marines behind him. It was just insane. This was a garbage speech by a garbage president. And the fact that he gave this disgusting, dangerous speech at Independence Hall is a sacrilege. That is good stuff. Monica has a way with words. She's very, very good. Let's see what else. Danny De Urbi. Danny De Urbina. Sorry. Remember when everybody freaked out over Hillary calling Trump supporters a basket of deplorables? Do you remember that? 7 years later, the President of the United States is actually waging war with half the country on live TV. Benny Johnson tweeted out, Joe Biden called half the country cancer tonight, treated them like sewer rats, less than people. Traitors! Why? Because they don't support his political party. Joe did this by yelling like a madman in front of a blood-red militant background. Joe Biden is a fascist. All Joe Biden did was unite tens of millions of Americans against him tonight. Dan Bongino. Joe Biden used the bully pulpit tonight to incite violence against American citizens. He's a grotesque human being not worthy of any public office. He's an embarrassment to the country and the office he holds. He's a clear and present danger to peace and prosperity. Not to mention he's doing his best to get us into World War III. And then Trish Reagan tweeted out, Biden effectively issued a declaration of war against half the country tonight. His inflammatory rhetoric was deliberate. He hopes to increase division ahead of elections. It's disgusting, it's manipulative, and it's dangerous. And I think Trish is absolutely right. I think all these tweets are right on. This is very, very dangerous. The goal of last night, make no mistake, the goal of last night was to try to get as many people as possible to see ultra MAGA patriots, who again, I reiterate, are whom, right? Their moms, their dads, their business owners, their factory workers, their policemen, their people, most of whom have never been involved in politics before. Biden wants as many people in America as possible to view those ultra MAGA patriots with the same disdain, the same disgust, the same derision as Biden and the Democrats and CNN and MSNBC have for them. And the reason for that is the Democrats' efforts to preempt the inevitable impeachment that's coming. They're already getting ready for it, and this is their strategy. So then it raises the question, doesn't it? First and foremost, what precisely is this strategy, right? What are they doing in this open vilification of half the nation? What are they doing there? And then secondly, what are the consequences of this? Where are we going from here? Have we crossed another Rubicon, for heaven's sakes? Well, we're going to get into all that and more. But first, gang, did you know our good friend Mike Lindell, Patriot leader par excellence, is now carrying patriotic coffee? Gang, you know, the only way I can do all this research is if I've been addicted to coffee since I was like 14, okay? So I love coffee, and you are going to love Mike Lindell's coffee. I've already gone through 2 full bags of it with a little help from my wife and my kids, who I'm trying to get addicted to coffee as well. So you're going to love it, and you're going to especially love having his big bags of coffee delivered right to your front door. You could get it in bean, or you can get grounded. It has different flavors. Mike's got tons of amazing stuff at his new mystore.com along with his coffee. I'll put a link in the description below for you to use code Turley to get 25% off the coffee or anything else on that store. So happy shopping and enjoy. All right, so let's start with the Democrat. Actually, let's start, Josh, why don't we take a couple of questions here? I see people are throwing out putting some questions in the super chat, which is great. Thank you guys very much for it. Let me get to Josh, our moderator. He's got them all listed out for me, so make sure we get them all. Josh, there you are. All right. So let's see what we got. What's on your mind, guys? Again, just throw some super chats up and ask your questions, and I will do my best to answer every single one of them. Mitchell Ryan, what do you recommend we do about all of this? LOL, I swear this is insane. God bless. It is insane, Mitchell. It is nuts. And it's a great question. And so I think our default position needs to be twofold. And in many respects, I find the dissidents in Eastern Europe, like Václav Havel, Václav Benda, in the back then it was Czechoslovakia. I find them very inspirational here. Number one, first and foremost, you do everything you can to change the political order, right? So for us, it's going to be voting, and again, at multiple levels, right? So like I was talking about yesterday's video, I just put it up last night. If you haven't had a chance to see it, I think it's going to really inspire you. It's a video on how patriot militias are actually taking over California. It's going to blow your mind. And I mean, there are tons of articles on this, but it's all flying under the radar screen. But LA Times has written about it and so forth. What happened is it all started in Shasta County, which is 3 hours, I believe, north of Sacramento. Very conservative county, but they still had plenty of rhinos on their board of supervisors and the like. Citizens, again, ultra MAGA citizens gathered together, voted them out. Now they have a supermajority on their board of supervisors that were all either members of or part of this patriot militia that's part of this larger patriot militia, the statewide militia of California. And then what they're doing is they put together something called Red, White, and Blueprint, and they're showing other neighboring counties how to do the same thing in their own politics. So this is what's technically known. I get into it in the video. It's technically known as re-territorialization, where politics is being taken away from the Davos crowd and from the dolts in D.C., right, or the bullies in Brussels, where politics gets radically centralized around a permanent political class that's aloof from the values, interests, and concerns of the people. It's grabbing that political power back by reasserting local sovereignty, the sovereignty of your local county government, and then re-embracing the cultural uniqueness of your locality as a mechanism of resistance against the anti-cultural processes of globalism and its secular aristocracy. So we're getting our politics back at local levels, at middle levels, at the state levels, and then finally at macro levels, at the federal level. So we got to get our politics back. And that's by, being awakened, not woke, but awakened to what's going on, getting as many people involved as possible. And it's happening. I did a video on how the feds raided an Amish farm in Pennsylvania, a few weeks back. Well, I can assure you that is galvanizing the Amish against the feds like you've never imagined. Okay, so it's the more they push this crazy, insane, draconian culture, federal culture on us, the more there's going to be a blowback and a pushback at the governmental level. So that's number one. And then the second one is we've got to be building parallel structures, just like they did in Eastern Europe. So, you're building parallel publishing houses. You're building parallel, for us, it would be parallel media, parallel social media, parallel banking, right? Parallel, you name it, anything, schooling, you name it. Everything that the mainstream society is doing, we've got to have patriot-based parallels, alternatives to it. It's what's technically known as a parallel polis. And that's happening, again, very, very organically. If we're doing both, if we're trying to change the politics while at the same time actively changing culture and society, they say politics is always downstream from culture. I tend to disagree with that. It is often downstream from culture, but oftentimes culture is downstream from politics. Just look at the Soviet Union, the Bolsheviks. They take over the politics. They can radically change the culture. So it's a both and. They're dialectic. They need it. They intersect. They need each other and apply one another. So we've got to be building our parallel polis, which is what we encourage every week on this channel on the one hand, and we've got to be pushing for political change on the other. If we're doing both, we're going to be rocking and rolling. All right. So there you go. That's what I think we need to be doing right now. Stephen Connors just certainly made me want to stay off his lawn. Yes, I'm with you, Stephen. Absolutely. Nikki Catlover, my worry is they're going to indict President Trump. What are your thoughts on this? Well, they are, Nikki. They're going to indict him. And they're going to do everything they can to try to use that as a way of disparaging him and then disparaging his supporters. I think it's only going to make him stronger. Remember, you can elect a president from jail. Indicting him is not going to keep him from running from office. There is no constitutional basis. Constitutional experts are widely agreed on this. There is no constitutional basis to prevent somebody from running for president, apart from, as I understand it, impeachment, full-blown impeachment. But you're not going to see that without the Republican Party committing suicide. I'm sorry, I should say conviction. You're not going to see that. And even then, I may be wrong. Even then, I don't think that can bar him for run. The only people who get to choose who is president is us, at least constitutionally. That's what it's supposed to be. So they are going to indict him. Already get ready for that. That's going to happen. But I think that's going to make him stronger. And it's going to galvanize the populist revolt, because now we're seeing the fact that the permanent political class really is scared of Trump. And if they're really, really scared of Trump, or if they're really, really scared of Trump, then he must be doing something right. He must be doing something right. So that's where I think it's going to galvanize a lot of people. Very good. Zach or Bridget Donna, thank you for the $10 super chat. Bridget Denise, happy Labor Day to you as well. Zach, 19 years of active duty service and military. Thank you for your service, Zach. I grew up so the military service I grew up in is being destroyed. We need to clean out the feckless officers and restore our military. Just need to vent. I think you could be assured that is probably going to be step number one in a second Trump term, or whoever it is that gets in there. I'm assuming it's going to be Trump. They are going to clean house of the millies and the woke military for sure. Florida Sheepdog, Biden only uses Marines as an insignificant political backdrop. Wasn't that absurd? Wasn't that insane that he made fellows who are supposed to be nonpartisan sit through that vitriol? It was just disgusting. Stuart the Brit. Overseas, he again assaulted all good Christian people the world over. Them that made America and will protect it. That's right. That's right, Stuart. I mean, absolutely. Yeah, he did. The amount of people that he insulted last night goes way beyond the United States, because we all know the same dynamics that are happening here are the very dynamics who are behind Brexit, the very dynamics that are elect George Meloni as the next prime minister of Italy, the very dynamics that look like it's going to elect Jimmy Åkesson of Sweden as the second largest political party in Sweden, which is pretty impressive because they've got like 30 parties. Same behind Marine Le Pen. I mean, same behind Narendra Modi in India. So yeah, it's the same dynamics that they're insulting. They're insulting people, average people who are sick and tired of a permanent managerial political class that rules according to its own values, interests, concerns at the expense and often the disdain of the values, interests, concerns of the people that generally are rooted in faith, family, freedom, culture, inheritance, and the like, and they're squandering all of it. So you got it. Very good, Stuart. Adam, Biden was giving off Emperor Palpatine in episode 3 vibes last night. It was really cruel and frightening. That is an insult to Emperor Palpatine. That is an absolute insult to Emperor. How dare you, man? At least he had his wits about him, you know? Thank you, Colin, for your super chat. Kenneth, Dr. Turley attended a Texit meeting with Dan Miller. Yeah, to give him my best. I haven't seen Dan in a while. 2 nights ago, and it was packed. Do you feel the U.S. is on the verge of breaking apart as a result of the current weaponization of the federal government? Yes. Yes, that is one of the concerns. Is that, I mean, again, we're not alone in this. We're not alone. I mean, I was just reading a fascinating article from the Telegraph last night that's scared to death with these rising energy prices, particularly in Europe. Going up 300-400%, unprecedented, 50-year high. He's afraid that we're going to see the dismemberment of the UK at some point as a result of just the resentment that's growing and peaking here. So yeah, no question. If you push too hard, it can crack, and that's a very real concern. And if you start to see tons of people going into Texas for some kind of red state sanctuary, I wouldn't be surprised. It'll be fast. Again, we'll have to see how it works out. It'll be fascinating to see. Hi, Q, review the movie My Son Hunter. I will. I'll look forward. But hey, we're looking at our movie. I'll give a little plug at the end, but there is a link down below. If you haven't pre-ordered our movie, the Return of the American Patriot, The Rise of Pennsylvania, you will definitely want to do it. It is taking all these dynamics that we're talking about here and puts them all together in an hour and 20-minute documentary. It's going to blow your mind. It's going to get you so pumped up and so excited. All right. Jose. Oh, let's see. Salty Texas Cracker. We need a Dugan-style Heartland initiative here in the States. Thoughts? Sure, absolutely. Yeah, if you're talking again, the Atlanticists versus the land people. Yeah. Well, I think we already have. I do. I think very similar to what we're talking about with Shasta County and the Patriot militias that are organizing their own security for their own people, because this Patriot militia was put together in Shasta County in order to deal with a crime wave, if I recall, right around the time of COVID. And so, yeah, we have to be self-sufficient. That's the key. That's the beauty of the Amish movement. The Amish movement is largely self-sufficient, largely independent to the grid, as it were. And I don't mean the grid just simply as electricity per se, which is very interesting because I was just on an Amish farm and they are starting to use some electricity via solar, which is quite a development. Yeah, it's not, I'm not talking about electricity. I'm talking the grid is almost kind of like, like the cathedrals, we call it. It's the establishment. We've got to be as independent of the establishment as possible. Food, right? Fuel, you name it, fertilizer, finance, everything has to be as independent as possible. And yeah, I think a Heartland initiative in that sense is already operative. It's already happening. Let me get one more in before we go back, and then I will answer the rest of your questions at the end. The Arizona Report, Dr. Oz is losing a very winnable race. He must ditch the suit, put on a T-shirt, stump with a beer in hand, and disavow his Hollywood friends, in my humble opinion. Then he will take the seat. Fetterman is beatable. Yes, yeah. Yeah, careful with Pennsylvania polling. Pennsylvania, as I understand it, is very difficult. Like Ohio, it's very difficult to poll. I don't think Oz, at this point, I don't think Oz or Doug Mastriano are going to have a problem winning. If there's a red wave, and there is, they're going to do well. Again, always remember, polling for Republicans slumps in late July, August, up to at least mid-September, sometimes all the way into October. Again, Rich Barris talks about this all the time at People's Pundit. It always slumps. Right now, at this time, Glenn Youngkin was 10 points behind Terry McAuliffe. Okay, and that was the same with Winsome Sears as lieutenant governor, same with the attorney general. They were all nearly 10. They were either double digits or nearly double digits behind. Republicans don't answer pollsters' requests for surveys. They don't during this time for whatever reason. But getting around mid-September, that's when they start answering them again, and that's when you start seeing the polls surge in favor of the Republican candidate. So it should be a +4, +2, +4 Republican crowd, as I understand it, in November. And so it's going to be very hard for Democrats to win. Again, I'll let you know. I mean, if it's mid-October and those polls are still the way they are, in an aggregate, as it were, looking through cross-platform of polling, yeah, no question. Then I'll say, all right, well, crap, we're blowing this. Let's try to figure out. But I don't think it's anything like what Ben Shapiro has been saying or anything like that. Well, it's all Trump, Trump, Trump. Trump, Trump, Trump. And if we keep making Trump the issue, we need to make other things the issue. Yeah. Oh, pray tell, Ben. Pray tell. What, border security, economic security. We're going to do economic nationalism now, cultural security, right? No, it's going to be, tax breaks and all that. I don't know. It just, I think if Shapiro had his way back in 2016, we'd be looking at Hillary's third term right now. So I'd be very concerned with his assessment of things. But having said that, let's move on, gang. Let's start with the Democrat strategy here. What's going on? I'm going to give you something that I think is very, very helpful to understand what they're doing. Very insightful. Biden's speech last night did what Democrats do best, and that is they turn to what is called resentment politics. Okay, now if you're a regular to this channel, that may ring familiar. Resentment politics. But it is a really important concept. Scholars have talked about it. They've studied it. And Democrats literally feed on it. Okay, they infuse the poison of resentment politics constantly into the life of our nation. So what are resentment politics? What we've got to understand is, as you could easily guess, right? For centuries, our political elite have feared this very powerful, this very visceral, this very threatening sentiment known as resentment, right? Because they worried that once it reached a critical mass among the people, it could lead to rebellion and political overthrow. Just ask Marie Antoinette. And so what political elites tended to do historically, and we see this going all the way back to the political rhetoric of classical Athens and Rome and the like, they tended to foster an internal unity among the people, the citizens, together in solidarity with the political class by creating the specter of a dangerous enemy from without. They tried to create a solidarity within by locating an enemy from without. It's an external enemy. And that's because external threats tend to breed internal solidarity, right? It's known as the systems of segmentary opposition. That's the technical term in the literature for it. External threats breed internal solidarity. Sports, team sports are literally predicated on that cultural anthropological concept. Scholars have noticed that since the 1960s at least, our politicians, particularly Democrats, but in fairness, Republicans as well, the Rockefeller Republican. This is a political class issue. Scholars found that our political class found that they could more effectively deflect resentment away from themselves if they did what? Not if they focus on an external enemy, if they instead divided the population by focusing on an internal enemy, an enemy from within. In other words, politicians turn their attention away from an external threat and instead began focusing on supposed internal threats, which transformed resentment into a tool for dividing the populace and diffusing potential resistance. So for decades, for example, the Democrats have been masters at turning what were once considered external threats like illegal immigration, which virtually every population on the planet always considered to be a threat. They turned illegal immigrants into victims, while at the same time they then turned around and demonized their own political opponents internally within the nation as being xenophobes and racists and bigots worthy of being socially marginalized and canceled. So you see, they went from an external threat now to an internal threat, but it's the same thing. It's the same impetus. They're always trying to deflect the possibility of this very vitriolic sentiment known as resentment. They're always trying to deflect that away from themselves, being the ones in charge, being the ones responsible for things falling apart. They deflect it from themselves and they point it to someone else. And within the nation, within the country, a segment of the population, those are the ones that are responsible for all of our problems. Now, you have to understand, this is why they hate Trump so much. This is what, to be honest with you, this is what I think Shapiro and others simply don't get of the significance of Trump. This is why they hate Trump so much. It goes back to resentment politics. Because what did Trump do? What did all that braggadocious twittering and all that sort of stuff, what did it do? Back in 2015, 2016, all throughout his presidency, even to this day, what did he do? He effectively redirected that mass sentiment of resentment away from any particular group within the nation and retargeted that resentment squarely and directly back on the permanent political class. That is why Trump is such an intolerable danger to these people. He has committed the cardinal sin of globalist politics, a politics governed by the centralization of power around a technocratic managerial elite. He has redirected the resentment that political class has thus far aimed at segments within our own population and boomeranged it right back onto them. Under Trump, the permanent political class is now the legitimate object of resentment. Not citizens, not people, no particular group among our people, no particular segment. Trump never picked on a race. He never picked on a particular economic class. He never picked on any particular segment. No, it is politicians. It's the permanent political class. They are the legitimate and justified target of our resentment because they have chosen to side with and defend their own values, interests, and concerns that benefit them at the expense of the values, interests, and concerns of the people. So does it make sense now, right? Do you see why they hated him and continue to hate him, and they're doing everything they possibly can to crush him? All to no avail, by the way. So that's the Democrats' strategy. It's to ramp up resentment politics against a new boogeyman within our population, a segment of our population, so as to deflect the legitimate resentment that's been building up and piling up against them. You know, things like record inflation, recession, runaway gas prices, baby formula shortages, supply chain interruptions, an imploding southern border, record crime waves, you know, things like that. I mean, obviously, a lot of people are going to resent those in charge, i.e. the Democrats, for all of these colossal failures. So you got to find a scapegoat to rechannel that resentment, deflect it away from you and towards someone else. And that's what bike riding Biden tried to do last night. And you and I are the scapegoats. So that's the strategy of that cringe-worthy spectacle that we saw last night. But what are the consequences of it? What are the consequences of alienating half the nation? I think we all know the answer to that. I think that last night brought us close to, in some way, shape, or form, a very real civil war than at any other time since 1860. You simply can't demonize, as the President of the United States, you cannot demonize half the population, tens of millions upon tens of millions of people, as national security threats. And then expect cordiality and respectful dialogue in return. It's not going to happen. Basically, what Biden did last night is he J6'd half the population. He Kyle Rittenhoused half the population. In effect, he said the quiet part out loud. This is how much we rabid, ideological, MSNBC watching Marxists hate you, and we are inviting as many people, other people as possible to join in on that hate. Now, I have to say, I think it was a horrible miscalculation, this channel. So we'll certainly be keeping our eyes on how things develop here, but make absolutely no mistake in trying to redirect the public's resentment away from the Democrats' failed policies and towards at least half the population. Make no mistake, Biden just declared a very real civil war. And we are definitely entering in some very dangerous waters. So there you go, gang. Over to you. Let's answer some more questions here. Let's make sure I've got my feed going. I just saw some message there that says some things are out. Hopefully the feed didn't break out. Ooh, look at that. YouTube is receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will experience some problems. I hope it hasn't been too bad, gang. I hope I got going there and I did not check to see how bad the stream was. I hope the stream was okay. Let's see. Let's take a look. Oh, while I'm opening this up, I did mention, guys, we're 13 days away now from the worldwide release of my new movie, The Return of the American Patriot, The Rise of Pennsylvania. It really is an amazing movie, documentary that's already encouraging, inspiring patriots all over the world to stand unified against the tyranny of big government and reinstate faith, family, and freedom at every level of society. So right now, if you click on the link below, you can pre-purchase the movie before it's released on September 15th for 25% discount. So don't wait. Pre-purchase it. I'll send you an invite to join me for the virtual premiere on September 15th. So remember, not only are you buying a movie, but you're showing the left that patriots are rising up in defiance of tyranny, and we will not be stopped. So click on that link below or go to the returnoftheamericanpatriot.com to pre-purchase your movie for 25% off right now. All right, guys. Boy, I hope that live stream, again, I'm getting all these messages that our live stream is not doing well in terms of the stream setting. Let's see. Stream settings should be okay. Hopefully we're doing all right. I hope I did not cut out on you. All right, let me answer some of these questions here. Let's see. Reaper King, with everything that has just happened, the horrible policy and corruption of the Biden administration, would impeachment really be enough? I know where you're coming from. Well, yeah, impeachment's going to send the message that we're willing to fight. We're willing to push back. That our politics are broken until, at the very least, you're gonna be willing to capitulate to our side a bit. We should all be in agreement on strong borders. No healthy society believes that anybody could just walk through our borders. We should all be for some kind of economic nationalism, and we should all be for strengthening our cultures, customs, and traditions. So until the Democrats are willing to work with that, and until they're willing to throw enough with the vilification and resentment of those values, our politics are broken, or until we have a supermajority. That's what we're going to have to wait for. Charles Turner, forget sleepy, creepy Brand and his whole administration. Our values are winning. Amen, Charles. You got it. Faith, family, and freedom, and firearms are prevailing. Globalist, Marxist, Illuminati people are so lacking in self-awareness. Charles has said perfectly. Nate Harley, what are your thoughts on the Selection Code movie? Are you allowed to talk about it? I don't know. I have not seen it, Nate. I'm ignorant of it, so I'd have no opinion on it. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve last night showed us one thing that nobody has mentioned. The ominous warning that Nikita Khrushchev gave to John Kennedy was on full display last night. The left has become the Soviet Union. Very good, and we know how that ended too, as well. So absolutely, I do think there is a bit of I like the Cuban Missile Crisis kind of metaphor there. There is something of smacking his shoe on the podium saying we're going to annihilate you, right? If we can get rid of Sleepy Joe, what do you think it would be like with Kamala's president? Equally disastrous. But she's even more unpopular and will get even bigger majority, I think, in 2024. The scariest part for me was when he keeps calling a Republican experiment and says we're just getting started. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And he didn't even call it a republic, right? I think he used the term republic once, never used constitutional republic, kept saying democracy. But of course, Stacey Abrams has been running around saying she was elected governor of Georgia back in 2018. The media's like, yeah, you were. They held you back. Look at all the election unintegrity, as it were. So I'm with you. Richard, when the wave comes, how much of the Senate will lean our way? 60-40 sway in the end? Good question. I've seen estimates as high as 7, as low as like 1 or 2. So we're just going to have to see how big the red wave is when all's said and done. We're going to see J.D. Vance coming in there. We're going to see Mark Masters. I think we're going to see Oz get in there, no problem. In North Carolina, it's already swung way to the Republican. So we should be okay. We should be all right in the Senate. Again, we need a couple. We're not going to get the 60-40. We're not going to get the supermajority. I don't think there's enough seats up for that. But we're going to do pretty well. And again, it'll set the stage for it'll stop the Democrats in their track, and it will set the stage for a return of the king in 2024. Uncommon news. The Civil War started in January this year. The trucker mandate was a commercial blockade, and Wally Adeyemo admitted it. Blockades are an act of war. Okay, that's cool. No, I get where you're coming from. Absolutely. Yeah, this is happening at all kinds of levels, no question. Reza Baker, Doctor, will the Republicans still take back both chambers of Congress? Yeah, I think we answered. Well, definitely, yes. I'll just say yes at this point. Again, if our institutions are, they're not salvable, but they're the integrity is still very much there, and they don't see that we really are in a war. They don't see it. They don't get it. But if last night wasn't a declaration, I don't know what is. So I'm with you. I think the Senate Republic culture is pretty bad. It is very aristocratic, very elitist, very institutionalist, and Republicans were getting disconnected. So I don't know what's going on there. We're gonna have to take a look at what's going on there. All right, let's see. Keep going here. Tom Greer, any suggestions for a patriotic bank to do business with? That's a great question. As I understand it, Amish tend to use local banks, local credit unions. Again, it is all, it's all interconnected, right? It's all going up to the Fed, and the Fed is owned by, what is it? I don't know, for something like 20 banks. And this is the connection between the state and the corporate world. But having said that, you don't have to deal with Bank America's absurd cultural Marxist absurdities and the like. If you're going, there's the camera with militia in the back and red glowing light in the back. Hi, Adolf vibes. Yes, you're not alone. Jeremiah, how confident are you that when Trump comes back in that he will completely drain the swamp, nuke the swamp, and invoke Schedule F? Very confident at this point, and I hope he does. I think I think his strategy, as I understand it, was to try to invite the establishment in, the Rhino Republican in, thinking that they'll accept that this is the new normal since they have no principles, right? They're just looking for a business model that's going to make sure that they're retiring basically with seven figures guaranteed for the rest of their lives. And he thought that they would be like, okay, that's cool. So it's going to be MAGA, fine, whatever, sign me up, right? It's the Lindsey Graham. He thought everybody was Lindsey Graham. He didn't realize they were actually going to, and to his fault, by the way, that they were actually going to conspire to get rid of him. So hopefully he's done with any Rhino, and he's going to go full animal on the swamp and invoke. Definitely F them all. Schedule F them all. I don't think that's a coincidence. We need to ASJ, Jamensho, Biden. Point to me on the doll where President Trump hurt you. There you go. That's got to be the most clever. It's got to be the most clever super chat I've ever gotten. Fraser, Canada's infused with the WEF. I know. Is the Democratic Party infiltrated by the WEF? Yes. Both parties. The permanent political class is. Absolutely. The Davos class. They're having the same problem in Britain. Yeah, I mean, Davos is everywhere. You know, to be part of Davos right now is to join, like, you know, the most popular, you know, exciting, handsome group in high school. You know, that's the way it was treated for so long. Now there's this massive backlash going on between most of the school and them, and so a lot of people are kind of backing away now. But yes, WEF, and keep in mind too. I mean, I did a video yesterday. Putin, in many respects, destroyed the WEF because the WEF is its governing philosophy is if you control finance, you control the world. If you control finance, you control the world. Putin's governing philosophy is if you control food and fuel, you control the world. Who's winning? Right? So in many respects, the WEF is doing everything they can to turn turn Putin into Hitler. And again, for right or for wrong, whether you like Putin or not, it's not the issue. I think the WEF is trying to turn him into the bad guy precisely because he called their bluff. He showed that it is not finance that runs the world, it's food and fuel. It's not cash, it's commodity. And we are moving more and more into a commodity-based world order, which is going to make the WEF, their influence in the world, increasingly negligible. But they already have huge inroads into the United States, Canada, Britain, and the like. Tom Greer, hey, Dr. Steve, the left is scared to death of your voice and views. Outstanding job, super patriot. God bless you, Tom. God, that's wonderful. USA 2022, thank you so much. Animation commentator. Remember Captain America, Winter Soldier, Biden's cronies, our Project Insight. I love it. Martha Catret, please, Sarah Palin's loss. I think please explain Sarah Palin's loss. It's, as I understand, it's the voting system there. That if you're putting your preferred candidate and say you put the Democrat as number one, who do you want next? And virtually, if we win the midterms on all fronts, they will be able to bring back the pipeline, or is the pipeline down for good? No. No, we would have to win. As I understand, we'd have to win the White House because it's the White House that shut down the pipeline. So we get the pipeline going, no question.